A couple of days in my community tab, I said I wasn't going to cover any of the leaked cards from Wilds of Eldraine, but now some official previews have begun.
About damn time.
So today we're going to do a little bit of preview action, along with a little primer with the new abilities and mechanics that are coming with the set, plus a couple of repeats that have been coming back from the original Throne of Eldraine set. So to start off with, we have the new mechanic Bargain. So as you cast a spell with Bargain, you can actually sacrifice an artifact, an enchantment, or a token, and if you do, you get a bonus effect for the spell, sort of like a kicker effect. So there's a counter that costs the traditional 1 blue in Ice Out, but if you pay the bargain cost, it actually costs 1 less, making it into a standard counter spell for blue. We also have a dragon called Realm Scorcher Hellkite that has flying, haste, and a 1 and a red pinging ability, dealing 1 damage to any target. If you pay its bargain, when it enters the battlefield, you get 4 mana of any color combination added to your mana pool, so you can either enable more plays before you swing, or you can just simply drop it into the activated ability to give it more damage, essentially, remove blockers, or zap a planeswalker to keep it in check after going, or you can go after their life total with the dragon itself. I'm kind of interested to see what other kinds of spells and bargain effects they include here in the set. Next up is a big mechanic known as rolls. Now I'm talking about like the role you play versus dinner rolls here. Generally it's an ETB, but there are some activated effects that create them as well. And what it does is it creates an aura that you attach to one of your creatures. It's a token, and it has one of 6 specific roles attached to each one of them. They come on token cards that are flippable one end to the other. So first up we have a wicked roll, which gives the enchanted creature +1/+1, and when the aura itself is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So it punishes a player for destroying it or letting it go to the grave, or you sacrificing it intentionally to something. Then it drains the opponents. There's a bunch of applications for this type of thing. On the flip side, we have Cursed Roll. Enchanted creature has base power and toughness 1/1. Now, this thing is designed to punish your opponents. It's kind of like a pacifism style effect, or Lignify, or those kind of things, where you place it on their stuff and it does something to their creatures. And then the next one is Royal Roll. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has Ward 1. So, of course, this is a way to protect our creatures, make them a little bit bigger, a little harder to kill. There's some good function here. On the flip side is Young Hero Roll. Now, this is the one of the ones that go on our creatures that don't just straight up give it +1/+1. Instead, it has, whenever this creature attacks, if its toughness is less than 3, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So if it's a 1 or a 2 toughness creature, it gets a little bit bigger. So in the end, you can actually get a little more benefit out of this thing if you're attacking and the creature survives through it. Then we also have, on the last version of the flip token, Monster Roll. The enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and it has Trample. So this gives the ability to buff up a creature and make it trample on through if we want to. Works well with various things. And then we have Sorcerer Roll, which gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 and has, whenever the creature attacks, scry 1. So you get a good utility out of that along with the pump. So far they've revealed a few of these, including Lord Skitter's Blessing. It's a variation on the Phyrexian Arena, which generally is 1 black, you lose a life, draw a card at the beginning of your upkeep. Whereas this one, it's slightly cheaper to cast, but there's a catch attached to it. It's 1 and a black instead of the 1 black. So it's a little easier, it's a little more splashable. When it enters, you create a wicked roll as I described before, and then at the beginning of your draw step, if you control an enchanted creature, you lose a life and draw an additional card. If you don't have an enchanted creature when this thing rolls around, you don't get the card, but you also don't lose the life. So this has some implications where maybe you get a little low on life to justify the life loss for the card, so you can get rid of the aura or just sacrifice the creature it's attached to and shut the effect off, rather than being forced to keep taking the life loss, unlike Phyrexian Arena and Black Market Connections and cards like that. Another interesting one is Spellbook Vendor. Now, remember I said that some of these were ETBs, but there are some that have triggers and activations. Well, this is one of the ones that has a triggering effect at the beginning of your combat. You pay 1 to create a Sorcerer Roll token, but you get to do it every combat rather than just being an ETB that you'd have to flicker to get a second use out of. So this one, you go to combat, you pay 1, and you get to put it on there. So you can either stack them up on one creature that's big, like a hexproof creature, or you can go ahead and spread them around so you have multiple auras going on for multiple creatures. Now, something I notice with the roll auras is they feel a little less bad than your traditional auras in a deck because you're not using the card slots in your deck for an aura to get the effect. Instead, they're kind of stapled onto these creatures that have, special effects to get them on the board, or ETBs or something like that. So they don't feel quite as bad if your creature gets blown up in response to the targeting of the aura, or they get blown up after they've been placed on there, or whatever happens in that case. You don't feel as bad getting 2 for 1. The third and final new ability that's coming out in the set is Celebration. Now, this is a new ability that triggers if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield that turn, and then the condition is met that gives the trigger. So as of the video right now, there's only one card that has been officially previewed so far that has an attack trigger that puts +1/+1 counters on Ash Party Crasher as long as you created 2 non-land permanents prior to combat when you attack with her. Oh, hello from post-editing. We have a new card that was revealed between the time I recorded and I started editing, and that is Gallant Pie Wielder. For 2 and a white, you get a 2/3 first striker that gains double strike with the Celebration mechanic if 2 or more non-land permanents entered this turn. So we do have more differentiating effects that are going to be coming with the Celebration mechanic. Now back to the rest of the video. Now we get to talk about the returning mechanics that were first introduced in Throne of Eldraine, and first one up is Adventure. Now, these were originally monocolored spells that you could cast with an instant or sorcery on one side and then a permanent on the other side. This time around, they come with a little slightly different flavor. Instead of just being one color, they're also split colors between 2 different colors. So that means for Commander, Oathbreaker, Historic Brawl, those kind of formats, you have to pay attention a little more to the color identity of what those cards are. So like a card like Kellen the Fey-Blooded, he's a mono red card, but he has a white adventure stapled onto him. So that actually makes him a red-white card for Commander, Oathbreaker, and Historic Brawl purposes. Or Callous Sellsword, which is a red-black color identity in the format, giving you a fling effect for red mana, but then you can actually cast it for black mana to get the creature side as well. Of course, there's also still the monocolored adventures and some pretty powerful ones at that, including the new Panharmonicon style enchantment in blue, Virtue of Knowledge, which it appears to be part of a cycle of adventure enchantments with a spell on one side and a powerful enchantment on the other side of it, and I'll discuss them more in detail once we have the entire cycle revealed. Adventure was pretty popular the first time around, and I expect it to be that way again, which means if there was an adventure card that was a little pricey from Throne of Eldraine that you've seen and you might want for like an all adventures type deck or something like that, you might want to get it sooner than later because they're probably going to spike up in price here coming up pretty soon, especially once the full set has been revealed. The last mechanic I'll just talk about real quick, and it's the other returning mechanic, is food tokens. These were also first introduced in Throne of Eldraine, and they're now back, which is great because we just had the Food and Fellowship deck for Lord of the Rings that was printed up, and so this gives us more support for that precon to be upgraded. And we also have the new bargain spells that are going to want to sacrifice tokens, artifacts, and enchantments. So these are ideal for fueling those new spells with bargain attached to them. And then we also have a preview of a new spell in the same vein as bargain, but it allows you to sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, or tokens to supercharge the effect. Lich Knight's Conquest. For every sacrifice, you get to actually resurrect that many creatures off of this thing, making all those extra food tokens laying around an actually valuable resource, especially since if we see more spells like this, it's going to be really good to have those around. And the nice part here is that this spell costs the same as most reanimation spells at 5, but that on those, you only get 1 creature back, so it's not overcosted to kind of balance it out. You just need to have a few tokens, artifacts, or enchantments laying around to sacrifice into this. And any more than 2 sacrifices into it puts this well above rate for what you're getting. On the downside, just remember, you don't get anything for this card if you sacrifice nothing. But all in all, this is a much better version of Rise to the Grave or some other similar spell, and I can't wait to actually start using it myself because I love mass reanimation. So that's all I have today, is just this little primer. We'll go over some more cards as they're revealed, things that are interesting to me in the Commander, Historic Brawl, and Oathbreaker formats. But until then, have a nice day. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.